Hello and welcome out to Outbreak Gamers. I'm your host, David Anthony, and I have a very special guest with me today. I have Trevor Burrows, aka ZemiGames. Trevor, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing really great. I'm really happy to have you on here. Um, I first, of course, discovered you from which a lot of people. It's a never-ending story, but from Boom's show, Mr. Boomstick, and his great panel, and you were awesome. And let's be honest, he kind of relies on you kind of heavily. There's been times when he's had to step away from the camera, and he's like, "Zemi, take it." Am I right? So yeah.
Yeah, he throws it to me sometimes, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this big, heavy pile, but I'll do my best. I'll do my best.
Exactly.
I am not a very good host for a podcast. Like I think podcasts are great. I love being on them. I've thought
Yeah.
about starting one many, many times, but I've never done it. And I'm really not a very good host. I don't think. Yeah, yeah,
Well, I think you do a good job.
yeah.
So, and then when,
Yeah.
of course, when you're in there and you're talking about the subjects and stuff, very informative. So we're going to be talking about a lot of things today. Obviously, about a lot of gaming, and at some point we're going to be talking about your latest project. So, and uh,
Absolutely.
and that's pretty exciting too. I'm gonna double check to make sure I got my phone off.
I ar-
Yeah,
I
hey.
already made the mistake. Don't make the mistake too.
No big deal, dude. No big deal. It's real, baby. It's alive. It's what it is. I love it. So let's get started, Trevor, with talking about, I guess, as at some point you got your first job, whatever that may have been, and then how
Yeah.
you progressed, in jobs that you've had. So what's something where you just start at?
Yeah, I mean, so my first job that, actually like paid me money and stuff, right?
Yeah,
Was because the reason I say that, because a long, long time ago, like whenever I was, like under 18 years old, I actually would uh do like ref work, like referee. So back in the day, like there were
cool,
websites like NX Gamers and Game Battles and so, so on and so forth. And so for a couple of those sites, I was like a referee for, or and sometimes a moderator for like forums and stuff like that. That's not really like an actual job, but and it they didn't pay me anything. But so the actual first job that I had that I got paid money, I was painting cars.
oh
uh
cool,
and I'm not really passionate about cars or really anything. It's just something that kind of fell in my lap, and I needed some working experience because I was young. So I just decided to jump in and do it. And I did that for a little bit, and that was pretty fun. Um, and then I left from doing that, worked at McDonald's, left for doing that, and then started a long track of retail work. Left from doing that, wounded up at uh, a call center for like Sprint, answering phone calls, like doing customer service.
right,
Left
right.
that, then I worked in like a Sherman Williams warehouse, like the paint company.
Yeah, yeah.
Eventually left from doing that, went back to retail at CVS. Was a shift supervisor there for a couple of years. Left that, went to the dollar store, became a store manager. Left that, started working at a vending machine stocking company. So I would drive a truck around, stock vending machines at like hospitals, schools, all sorts of different stuff like that.
Very cool.
Um, yeah, and then I left that, and I really jumped into doing YouTube like full time. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool, and I guess that's kind of where it led you where you are now, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you've had it's given you opportunities from there, which we'll kind of go into that. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, for sure it has. You know, it's also kind of given me like a very unique perspective in that I've seen like multiple different industries, and like, I mean, obviously I haven't been in management in all of those different industries, but even being, a low guy on the totem pole, you can kind of still see how that business works and how it's structured, and so on and so forth. I definitely kind of have like more of a mind towards like business and marketing, and so on and so forth. So, that's really interesting to have, that experience, and, to have those experiences. But yeah, I've worked at a lot of places. Like I really, really have. Yeah, I've left a lot of places too. One thing I am very proud of to say though is that I've never not once been fired.
That's
So
good. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Every time I've ever left a company, it's always just been because I wanted to. I wanted to like grow. I saw another opportunity or whatever it may have been. Yeah,
That's good. I mean, that's something for real, because it's I've known people that have, especially today's climate with the youth kind of
yeah,
feeling toward jobs. It's like, um, like my daughter works at the movie theater, and somebody may, hire, go through the interview, go through all the training process, work one shift, and then never show up again. And it's like that
yeah.
job is not hard. There's a lot of worse jobs you could have, especially as your first job, and they just didn't work out for them.
Yeah. No, I mean for sure. Well, I mean, and see, that's the funny thing about the millennials, I think, though. And I am a millennial, right? So
Right.
I just think that's kind of the funny thing about them is that, you know, um, I think every generation wants the best for themselves. The difference is that like the millennials kind of just grew up being told constantly that can go to college and you can do this or you can achieve that or all this different stuff. But
Hmm.
then there's also the really unique situation where we grew up with social media and we saw a lot of people our own ages and so on and so forth doing these amazing things and thinking, well, why can't I do that? Right.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
there's a lot of not influencers in the situation of like an actual YouTuber, but like there's a lot of influences that I think have kind of like resulted in a lot of people kind of just quitting their job and going and looking for a better thing, which in the wider scheme, I think is probably a better thing for
Oh yeah.
society. People
Yeah.
going and chasing their dreams and finding the
Sure.
things that they're passionate about and wanting to do, rather than just going and doing what the previous generations did.
Yeah, you definitely. The one thing I was always told that try and find a job that you either love or at least enjoy being
Yeah.
at, and that'll make the rest of your life kind of fall into place. Even if it's not necessarily the job you want, but at least it's something that you can get through without being like, oh, I hate my job. Then it's like you're up against the wall and you're beating your head against the wall, and then it's it seems like you're on a spiral, not to have a great life kind of thing. But
Mhm.
yeah, there's definitely a lot of opportunities out there now too, especially with a lot of people really wanting to hire. So let's hope that they get their opportunities and take them and enjoy them, because who knows what the market and the economy may do in another year. Who knows, right?
No, for
Things
sure.
things go up and down. So I tell my daughter, it's like, well, if you're thinking about another job, now's the time to at least look.
Mhm. Yeah.
Worst case scenario, if you don't find something better, you've got what you have, you know, but you
No,
may find
absolutely.
something. So, especially when she's like, oh, I'm thinking about buying a car. Not on your salary now. No, no.
I was just recently looking at that, and these used car prices have just they're outrageous. I mean, honestly, like from what I saw, I would be
Yeah.
better off buying a brand new car than buying a used car. Like really and
Honestly,
truly, and,
yep.
and that's it. I mean, that's ridiculous, but
Yep.
it's the way that the car market is with all these shortages, man.
Yep.
It's
For
crazy
now, at some point
for
that'll
now.
probably
Yeah,
change. But
yeah.
like, I bought a car right when the pandemic started, or like actually before it started. I was looking, and then everything kind of went to hell in a handbasket, and I had to, I had an appointment to go test drive a car the following weekend. These just because I had to drive to Louisville to get to it, so it was a couple hour drive to go
Mhm.
there. And then that Monday before I had the appointment and stuff, I got a call from the dealership saying, "Hey, we know you're really interested in this car, and here's what we want to do for you." I'm like, "Okay." They're like, "The governor's going to shut down car lots starting tomorrow, so we're not going to be able to sell cars, and we're willing to drive the car to you, let you test drive it, take it to your mechanic, whatever you want to do to it, check it out. If you like it and you want it, we'll make a deal, and then we'll drive your car back as a trade." Because I talked to him about trading in my old Jeep, and I was like, I called the wife, and she's like, "Well, if they're willing to do that," and he said, "And if you don't want it, we'll just get back in the car and go home. No big deal." I was like,
Mhm.
okay. Ended up getting, and it was like, ended up like, well, make this deal today. I'll tell you, this is what we have in the car, and this is what we need. And he took it $1,000 off, and I was just like, okay. But I had it checked by a mechanic, and they were like, dude, this is a sweet ride, and I got a really good deal on it. So fast forward 2 years later, or about a year and a half later, 2 years later, um, I decided I was gonna trade that in, and my wife needed a new car desperately, so we got her a 2018, which we paid heavy for, but it was still, it was worth it to us. But they gave me a lot more for the car I traded in than what I paid for it 2 years ago. Let's just say a
Yeah.
lot more, and I was like, I think we'll do that because it paid off that loan, and yeah, so and she's really happy, so that was brownie points. But yeah, so you just never know. You just really never know. So
No, yeah.
let's get into your gaming. So I guess how did you start off your gaming? Like, what game or system just kind of made you start want to play games?
Yeah, I mean, so I started gaming from like a really, really early age. Like I'm gonna be honest, like some of my earliest memories are of me playing games. And the first console that I had and I played on was the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. And I played, a good number of games. Like, I mean, I was still like pretty gosh darn young at the time, so like I definitely remember playing Super Mario Bros. I think 2 or 3. I remember playing a little bit of like there was like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles like kind of fighting beat 'em up game, like a Terminator game, a Power Ranger. I mean, like there's just
Oh yeah,
tons of different games I played on that system, and then eventually. My parents, kind of upgraded me and my brother, and we both got a PlayStation 1. And then, I played a good number of games on there. I'm going to be honest with you, though, like really the main one that I remember, and this is going to sound crazy. I mean, like,
no,
I don't know, it's kind of embarrassing because it's like, I'm a 28-year-old man now talking about a game I played a long time ago. But there was this Rugrats game. I don't know if you remember the cartoon
I
or if
do
your
remember that.
kids
Yeah.
maybe saw it or
Oh
anything,
yeah,
but
my kids used to watch that.
uh, yeah, there was a game for it on the PlayStation 1, and for some reason that is like the main game I can remember playing on that console. So,
Yeah, well,
um, you know. And then, of course, a few years. Then, of course, we also got the Nintendo 64. My parents were really, really great in the sense of, that they really bought us, tons of consoles, and they would buy us a couple of games, and I guess maybe my attention span was, I don't know, like a lot more then than what it is now.
right,
In the sense that just having a handful of games was perfectly okay, right? And of course, the internet didn't exist. My parents weren't throwing me gaming magazines necessarily, and I
right.
don't really even remember there being a ton of advertisements on TV for video games at that time. So, I didn't really know of what new games were coming out or anything like that. So I just kind of
Mhm.
played what I got. But of course, I also got like the Nintendo 64, started playing Mario 64 on it, Star Fox, which is a game I absolutely still adore today. And
I
I
love it.
very much wish that Nintendo would make another Star Fox because that game was awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Um, and then eventually the PlayStation 2s came out, the Xbox, original Xbox came out as well. And you know, my parents got me and my brother both of those. We played Halo. I played a lot of Grand Theft Auto, which is, in hindsight, probably not the best thing to give your child mom, and dad.
It's
Uh,
a great deal.
just
Mhm.
saying, just
Yep.
saying. But no, tons of fun. Like Grand Theft Auto Vice City, Grand Theft Auto 3, San Andreas. Played a tremendous amount of those games. And then, even though my parents didn't really buy me games very often because I really never asked for games, because the ones that I had, I would just play a tremendous amount in. Like I would, I mean, see, that's another unique thing. Is like Grand Theft Auto is a big open world game, and there's
Hmm.
so many different things that you can do in that
Oh yeah.
game that as a child with an attention span that I had, I would come home from school like every single day and just sit down and play that game just nonstop every single day, like 364 days a year, whatever. Like it didn't bother
Right.
me, right?
Right.
Nowadays I couldn't do that. Like that would kill me.
Yeah.
But eventually, a few years, after that, whenever I started kind of getting into my lower teens, I kind of like just fell out of gaming a little
Hmm.
bit and just didn't really play games as much as I used to.
Right.
And that's until like a buddy of mine came to school, which we're still really, really good friends, even still to this day. And he recommended a game called Elder Scrolls Oblivion.
Hmm.
And like he came to health class. Like I think we were in like sixth or seventh grade. He came to health class and he was telling me about it, and he's like, man, you can pick up apples, or like you can eat the apple. And I was like, no, you can't. He was like, yeah, you can. He was like you can buy houses. And I was like, what? That's crazy.
Yeah.
And then he told me, like in Oblivion, in Anvil, in the city called Anvil, there's this
Hmm.
house that's super, super cheap. And he was telling me a story about how he went to like this bar or this pub or whatever, and this guy sold him this house for like almost no money.
Right.
And he went to the house and it was haunted, and there's ghosts all over the place, and all this different stuff. And like to me, like I mean, I'd played Grand Theft Auto, which at the time I thought was incredible. This big, wide open world where you can go around and drive tanks and blow people up and do other nefarious activities. Um,
Hmm. Like
you
what?
know,
Just kidding. Yes.
I like, well, like honking your horn at certain pedestrians, and
Yep.
um,
Yep. I know. I
and
know.
and conducting an exchange through capitalism, and yeah, no.
That's so funny.
uh but no, I mean, to me, like that game just sounded absolutely incredible. So I immediately came home, told my parents, and I was like, I really, really wanted this console. And eventually my grandmother bought me an Xbox 360, and
Nice.
she bought me Elder Scrolls Oblivion. And for like the next probably year, like that's all I was playing, is just that. And eventually I slowly got into Xbox Live, because on the 360, it would pop up messages like, hey, try this free trial out and all this different stuff. And
Hmm.
eventually I got into that. I started playing Rainbow Six Vegas
Nice.
demo. Like back in the day, they had
Hmm.
demos for games, and
Yep.
it was a multiplayer demo, which is really, really cool. They don't really have those anymore, I don't think.
Not
But I
much.
started playing that, and started talking to people. Really, really started getting very, very like active into gaming, in the sense that now I was actually starting to look into games and figure out when games are going to be releasing, and so on and so forth. And that's probably whenever I was around the age of 13, 14, 15. Um, and then it just kind of continued from that. During the 360 generation, I actually did not have a PlayStation 3. My brother did, and I played it a little bit, but I wasn't really interested in it,
Hmm.
because at that time I had pretty much almost just converted over to being an Xbox gamer, honestly. And then I think
Right.
my parents, they bought a Nintendo Wii for the for the living room, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, the Xbox One came out, bought that. I also bought a PS4 that I later traded in, because there wasn't really anything I wanted to play on it. And then
Right.
now, of course, I have the newest Xbox Series X as well. And then in addition to all of that, like, I also had some handheld systems growing up, like
Oh yeah.
the Game Boy Advance, and the like, I think it was like the 2DS that my parents bought. I think my parents bought me a PSP sometime. Um, and then we had a PC growing up, and every now and then I would play a few games on that as well.
Hmm.
Like some point and click games,
Right.
and Sims, it's just, like
Played
some
that too.
hunting games, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, and then just to also add in, whenever I was younger, like I don't really consider this being a console. I guess it is. I guess you could make the argument that it's a console, but do you, like the plastic little box with like the little joystick on top that you could play Pac-Man
Oh
with.
yeah.
But there was also like other games bundled in it, like I think like Pong might have been bundled in there as well.
Yeah,
Like,
I think so.
so like the really really cheap consoles that had like the very old school kind of like games on. I definitely played those as well growing up.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Loved all that kind of stuff. Well, that's cool. That's cool. So, so when you played the games that you did, and then I guess, and then you've gotten yourself uh, to where at one point you talked about how you liked doing the YouTube. So that kind of the worlds kind of collided there. So I guess your subject for YouTube was gaming, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, actually, how I got into content creation is actually a really, really interesting story.
Let's hear
I
it.
I did an interview kind of similar to this one with a guy on online who's called Stubbs Gaming.
Oh,
And
cool.
whenever he brought it up, he asked, "Hey, you know, what was the like the origin of you getting into content creation?" And I had to just open it up, saying that it's a sad, tragic story because it kind of is in a way. Because you know, I think with most creators, it's really a story of just failure and a lot of it until you finally, you know, hit your mark and
Right.
make
Get your
some
niche.
form of a success out of it. And I started probably, I think I was around 12 years old at the time. I might have been a little bit older. But I was seeing all of, you know, all of these YouTubers that were, you know, making videos and making pretty good success out of it. And being a kid, you see that and you're like, oh, I want to do that. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I did just that, and I you know, turned on Elder Scrolls Oblivion, which still stands to be my favorite game to this date. And I didn't have a capture card. I didn't really have a very good computer, but I did have a cheap $30 camcorder that I set on books and aimed at the TV and recorded it. And
There you go.
I think I made like one episode of like a Let's Play and tried to upload it. I don't even, I can't, I honestly can't even remember if I actually uploaded it or not. It was awful. It
Right.
was terrible, tragically terrible. And so I very quickly gave up on the idea of content creation at that point, and I just kind of started, you know, doing some other things and just kind of, you know, just playing games and just being a kid, so on and so forth.
Which is
Until
good.
yeah, and until probably around like 16, 17 years old, I got like a laptop and a webcam and sat down and tried to make some, you know, more videos, and then that didn't really work out either. And then a little bit later on, I think whenever I was 19, I you know, tried it again and you know, saw like a little bit of success in the sense that like I was getting like 5, 10 views, maybe 30 maximum,
Right.
uh, but not really anything good. And then eventually I did something which is not smart. And I will tell everyone right now what I did was dumb, really stupid. No one should ever do.
Okay.
Um,
Well, I want to hear this.
I, whenever I was working at the vending machine company, I absolutely hated that job. I hated it. And like the money, like they were like, just to put this into perspective, which you and me, we're both from Kentucky.
Yep.
And you know, of course, like this isn't, you know, like they don't pay you the most money in Kentucky. Like it doesn't cost a ton to live here in the state.
Yep.
So
Minimum wage
I
jobs are
think,
everywhere.
yeah, I think I was making like $300 or maybe I think I was bringing home $300 salary per week at this job. And you know, and I was putting in about 60 to 80 hours a week.
Wow.
So I really hated it. It was not
Yeah.
good. And I was, for some reason, I was still doing YouTube at the time, not being very, very successful at it. And so guess what I decided to do?
Go on a
You
rant.
know, no, no, no,
No.
no. No, it's actually worse than that.
Oh no.
I decided to quit my job at the vending machine company that was paying me money to then go into YouTube because in my mind, I maybe wasn't spending enough time on YouTube, right? Like if I put
Yeah.
in more time, I might get more out of it, right?
Right.
Which is dumb, right? Shouldn't
Yep.
do.
Nope.
Fortunately, the story kind of paid out and you know and ended hopefully in a more positive direction than what it started in.
Right.
Um, but yeah. So one thing though is having quit the job, at that point, I then needed to survive. Like I needed
Yeah.
money, you know? So at that point, it wasn't a question of, hey, YouTube's a great hobby that I'm doing. Maybe hopefully one day it will succeed. It kind of transformed into a, if this doesn't succeed, I, am kind of screwed, or, I need to go get another job or whatever. I'd saved up a little bit of money as like a
Nice.
cushioner. Like I'm not a
Mhm.
complete idiot. I mean, I'm an idiot, but I'm not that
Whatever.
dumb, right?
Too funny.
And so, I gave myself kind of like a time frame to, if you make a success out of it, or if it starts going in a good direction,
Right.
like your brain will allow you to continue doing these bad decisions. But if it absolutely fails, then you're going back,
Right.
so it was a little bit more controlled than just randomly quitting and going for it. Um, but with the need to succeed, hey, that just rhymed. Yeah. With the need
Your
to
true calling. Here it comes.
I know it. I know. You know what, guys? I'm gonna quit content creation. I'm gonna become a rapper.
Wiki, wiki, chicka-pa. That's it. Well,
No.
here we go.
Um,
All right. Sorry.
this place has all the tricks.
It
I've been
does.
on Boom's podcast for a very long time, and never once has he pulled that rabbit out of the hat.
Well,
Um,
I'll do my best.
not making it a competition or anything, but
Not at all. It's too funny.
but yeah, but whenever you kind of back yourself into a corner like that, and
Mhm.
you kind of need to succeed.
Right.
And it definitely lit a fire underneath my butt and got me to really, really critically look at my YouTube channel and to dive into it, and figure out what I was doing right, what I was doing wrong. And eventually I came up with the idea of making tutorial channel, like a tutorial YouTube channel for like Xbox tutorials. And a
Right.
big mindset about it, or a big reason why I came up with that idea was, nobody else was doing it,
Right.
right? And it's definitely a valuable thing. I mean, you can just
Oh,
think of it
yes.
right now, right? Like there's always going to be people looking on Xbox for tutorials and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
And so I saw it. Nobody else, really saw I guess the potential in it at that time. And so I went in with a lot of the skills that I'd gained in the past months of just really researching YouTube religiously.
Mhm.
And I made a YouTube channel all about Xbox tutorials, and it's done me really, really well. Eventually I, expanded from that, and I started doing news videos. I joined a podcast with Mr. Boomstick XL, which you had previously on this show.
Oh, yeah.
And I think now I have around 21,000 subscribers and 8.5 million views. So it's
Fantastic.
pretty good. Pretty good.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And that's the constant gamer, right?
Yep, it
Yeah.
is the Constant Gamer. Yep, that's
Now,
the YouTube channel.
that's the picture, right? Of
That
it?
is.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you look
I
nothing
think
like that,
I
just like that
think
guy.
okay, yeah. Um I was just about to say, I think that is exactly where this conversation is going. I don't look like that guy.
Yeah.
And that was actually a branding decision. Like
No,
I
it's
don't have
cool. It's
anything
cool.
against like people's avatars. I think that those are
Right.
great. Honestly, right there's mine.
Oh, there you go. That's cool.
If you're
Yeah.
watching on YouTube right now, you can see my avatar on screen.
Yep.
But that's my avatar. I don't really use it very much. It used to be, I've changed the Constant Gamer brand like multiple times, just
Mhm.
testing out different things, playing
Well,
around
sure.
with it, so on and so forth. And it used to be that the channel was called ZemiGames, but then I actually kind of wanted to change it to the Constant Gamer. And when I think of someone who is constantly playing games, I'm thinking of a very round individual.
Yeah, yeah.
Medical professionals would probably say obese, maybe morbidly obese,
There you go.
covered in food,
I love it.
holding a controller, smiling with drool running down his face, and a little bit
Yep.
of a little bit of grease from the pizza or something on just hanging from his shirt. Of course,
I've had
people
nights
that
like
wear
that, Zemi. I've had nights like that. I'm just saying. I can relate.
Looking back, they were great nights, though, weren't they?
They were. They really were. Oh.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of the idea of it. And then it's
Yeah.
also, a little funny, right? Kind of
It
making
is.
fun of like the typical gamer stereotype of
Right.
living in your mother's attic or basement,
Or
and
basement.
which
Yeah. Yeah.
I think if that guy was a real person, if my logo, my mascot for Constant Gamer was a real
Yep.
person, I truly like to believe that he would live in his mother's basement.
Yep.
100%. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's why I don't look like that. It's because I'm not truly a constant gamer.
Right, right, right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, when you first sent me that for to use for the show, I was like, that seen Zemi before. That's not what he looks like, but that's
That's
cool.
not
No,
what he
that's
looks
cool.
like at
Right,
all.
exactly.
Zemi has a lot less hair than that.
Hey, right there with you, buddy. Right there with
I'm
you.
telling you, it's a struggle I live with every day.
That's why I wear a hat. Alrighty
Yeah, that's why I shave
then.
my head usually. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. There you go. That's cool. So from Constant Gamer, which is actually pretty awesome, and you like said you were, um, I guess at some point, how did you get on Boom's show? How did that? Because I know he reached out to a lot of people. So, well, how did that cross hairs? How did that come about?
Yeah, so, I like I said before, right?
Hmm.
I love podcasts.
Oh
I
yeah,
really
me too.
do. I absolutely love podcasts. I've always wanted to start up a podcast, but I don't like to do things that I'm just not good at. Just inherently, I just really suck at. And one of those things to me is being a podcast host. Like, I
Right.
don't think I would be a very entertaining or engaging podcast host, right?
Okay.
So what was my solution to that? It was to see if I could jump onto a podcast, right?
Right. Be a
And
panelist.
just as a guest or a panelist, yeah.
Hmm.
And so I just reached out to Boom. I mean, this was quite a while ago, honestly. Like
Yeah.
it's been several years ago.
Right.
I can't remember, like 3 or 4 probably for sure.
Wow.
I reached out to Boom and I was like, hey, I'm another content creator. I have like 10,000 subscribers or something, whatever it was. Hey, would you let me come on your podcast sometime? I've been watching a few episodes. I really like it. I would love to come on your show as a guest. And he of course
Hmm.
said yes. That's the thing with Boom. He's the yes man. He will
He's one in a million.
he loves giving people shots. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And that's something that's great about his channel. And so of course he said yes. I came on the show. I did the show. It was I was very nervous. I was stuttering a lot. I was stammering all this different stuff. And I eventually asked him, hey, can I come on it again? He said yeah. And eventually I asked him if I could become a full-time panel member um, for his Friday shows called Breakfast with Boom. And of course, he said yes to that. And I started
Nice.
being on that show permanently as a full-time panel member. Yeah, eventually I left that specific show that he did, and I trans because I really liked the show. Like, it was a Friday show. It was like I just like gaming in general, but I've always been a little bit more Xbox centric. I'm not
Hmm.
gonna lie. And then also just some personal things. I just kind of a Friday show was being a lot harder on me, so
Right.
I transitioned over to the Tuesday show that he and the Welsh Gamer created called the Xbox Factor podcast.
Yep.
Eventually, I then transitioned over from the Tuesday show to the Thursday show, and then I'm not really any longer a official like panel member or the co-host with the co-most as Boom always refers to me.
That's cool.
I don't have that official title anymore. But every now and then I do jump back onto his show whenever he throws out the invite, and I appreciate it,
Yep.
and I love being on his shows, man. I really do. He's a fantastic guy, and
He
he
is. He
puts
is.
a lot of hard work into his shows, man.
He really does. I'm fortunate enough that he asked me to join his Friday show. Now I'm on Breakfast with Boom. Last week was my first episode as a panel member, and you're right. I love it. It is awesome. I had to make some
Yeah,
changes around my work schedule, but my boss was really cool. So I'm like, sweet. There's nothing to hold me back. I'm
yeah.
in. You know.
Well, and
So Go ahead.
One other thing I really like about how he sets up and formats his shows is the show notes, right?
Yes.
I don't think he may still do like the really long show notes. I don't know if he still does those or not for all of his shows.
Not as much from what I hear, but definitely
Gotcha.
gets you in the right direction.
Got you. But even with like minimalistic show notes, it helps people that maybe have never went on a podcast before
Right.
actually jump into into that type of format of like a YouTube show and
Hmm.
feel a little bit more comfortable because they can kind of write down a few notes, write down some talking points, or so on and so forth for
Yep.
the show. But rather than just jumping in cold footed, right?
Right.
And
Exactly.
not knowing what they're going to talk about or anything, and I've done that a few times and it is not fun
Oh yeah, going in
jumping
cold.
in,
Yeah.
yeah, going in cold, yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. From there, you were on the show for a while, and you did a couple of the other shows,
Yeah.
and it's always good when you are on. I always love it when you are on. Just saying it, throwing it out there. But so you kind of took a step back from your show, and then you also took kind of a step back a little bit from the constant gamer, not putting out as much content
Mhm.
because you had another project come up. So
Yeah.
let's get into that.
Yeah. So yeah, I did step back from doing the Xbox Factor podcast and
Hmm.
from doing a lot or posting a lot of content to Constant Gamer for a couple of different things I'd been working on. But one thing really in particular was creating a game studio called Goldenrod Games and creating our very first game called Back to School,
Awesome.
which actually releases here in a couple of days. At the time that they're watching this video, I don't know when it's going to drop, but uh,
Mhm. Well,
it,
I'm planning on dropping this the day it comes out.
the
So
day it comes out.
that
So
way
today,
yep,
today you can buy Back to School. Yep.
there you go. There you go. And where's
Yeah.
it going to be available at? And then we'll get into the
It's
particulars.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be available on Steam and on the Xbox consoles.
That's
So
awesome.
Xbox One and Xbox all the Xbox One consoles and all the Xbox Series consoles, as well as Steam.
Well, and you were nice enough to give me a code to the Steam, and I appreciate
Yep.
that. I did get to try it out, and you also sent along some videos. So if you'd like, we can kind of bring it up a little bit. Is that okay?
Yeah, no,
And then
absolutely.
and then from there, we will let you kind of talk about the game. Maybe how the idea came along. I know it wasn't just you. You had some other people work on it with you, correct? So
Yep,
so
I hired one other guy. His name's Kyle Partlow. He's a
nice.
programmer who recently graduated from um, God, I can't remember the university, but it's a university in California. I know that he lives in Cali. So, but yeah, he's a recent graduate from a university where he I think majored in game design and programming. Yeah,
Very cool.
yeah,
All righty. So there we go.
yeah. And as I'm talking about the game, feel free to jump in with any questions that you have.
Oh yeah. I definitely will.
But anyway, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of back information on what Back to School is. Back to School is a educational trivia school simulation game, which is a mouthful to say. But basically, what it is a game that allows you to take quizzes that have questions from the first grade all the way to the fifth grade. And basically, the ultimate goal of the game is to play through all the quizzes and to get a passing grade and to graduate from elementary school. And some people, like, whenever I tell them about this idea, they're like, "Well, it kind of sounds like, are you smarter than a fifth grader?" And the idea is kind of inspired off of that idea, but expanded upon, of course.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, at its basis, this game is very strongly a quiz game that allows you to answer what I think a lot of people would typically think would be basic questions because they're first grade questions or because they're third grade questions or whatever, but actually tend to be a little bit more complicated or confusing than what you might initially think. And The art style of this game is actually like the entire game takes place on a 2D chalkboard with the questions being written at the top, and then the questions for the player to select down below, which adds
Yeah, I
to the
love the
school
look of it.
vibe. Yeah, adds to the school vibe. And unfortunately, right there, I only got a C. That's
Well, I
unfortunate.
mean, you don't want to give all the answers away, right? I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
different subjects too. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so in back to school, there are 5 levels. Each level has 4 quizzes. And for like each level, so like there's first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade. Those are each levels in the game. And for each of those levels, there are 4 quizzes. So that means that there's 20 quizzes in the game total. And for each quiz or for each uh, grade,
Hmm.
the test or for each grade there is a English, math, science, and social studies quiz. So the subjects remain the same across all of the grades.
Right.
In total, I think that there's a little bit more than 500 questions total. Each quiz, like each individual quiz, has between 25 to 50 questions, and each quiz that the player actually does is 10 questions. So there is and those questions are randomly pulled from a list every time the player wants to retake or do another quiz.
Right.
So that adds a little bit of replayability, and then also it kind
Oh
of
yeah.
aids in the learning process. That way, you're not continually getting the same exact questions every single time.
Right.
So yeah,
I like it. I really do. And I tell
yeah.
you something that I think it's. I mean, it's almost at this time when I mean, I know there's a lot of people that are going back to school and such, and finally opening up the classrooms and stuff. But there's still times when there's a lot of kids that are still behind because of the pandemic,
Mhm.
and something like this can be fun where the parents can maybe play along with their kids
Yeah.
or help them out, and just it's something I don't mean simple, but I mean it's something that's like let's think about this, let's what do you think the answer is and why, and it's something you can read, and like I said, it basically helps education. I mean, it's educational but fun.
It is. Yeah, it is definitely a an educational game, 100%, I mean this could, this is definitely a game I think that's going to provide more benefits to the player than harm them. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's definitely going to add a lot to you know hopefully to better the player ultimately.
Right.
um but at the same time, like, this game is very very unique in its approach, because one thing that I started up Goldenrod Games to do is to like one of the, I guess, the studio's overarching ideas is to find underutilized genres in games, or
Hmm.
forgotten genres in games, and recreate them in like a modern sense, right?
Right.
And so, this game definitely has some simulation environments where you are the student that's playing through trying to graduate elementary school, right?
Hmm.
But then, of course, it also has the educational kind of genre and component to it. And then, of course, it's also a 2D trivia quiz game, right? So it does a lot of things. And I think the really interesting part is that, I can't speak of Steam because there's a lot of games on Steam. But as far as Xbox goes, I don't really, I feel pretty confident in saying that there's not really any other games that are like this on Xbox right now.
Right. Right. No,
So
I agree with you.
it's
Yeah.
very unique. And one of the features in this game that I'm actually really really proud of and very excited of, and it may sound weird at first, but let me explain, is the
Yeah. Yeah.
timer. The timer is actually really really cool because first reason, in the settings menu, you can change the timer, and that kind of acts as the main difficulty of the game. Of course, the game is going to progressively get more difficult as
Hmm.
you play. It's just the nature of it. First grade questions are just going to inherently be easier than fifth grade questions, right?
Right.
So there is that line of difficulty, but the timer also acts as uh, as a difficulty scaler, in the sense that you can change the time that you're allowed to complete each quiz. The hardest difficulty is 2 minutes. The easiest difficulty is no timer at all. But there's also a 5 and a 10-minute timer as well. I'm really, really excited about that no timer option because there are a lot of gamers that do face difficulties doing a ton of different things. But one of those things, especially with education, is learning disabilities, right? So allowing, players that extra time to be able to answer the questions and giving them all of the opportunities to hopefully get that correct answer was really, really important whenever I set out to do this game. And so I'm really, really, really proud of that feature of giving the option to players to have unlimited time if they need that or if they want that, while also adding an extra challenge for players that really, really want to I don't know, um, for those really brave players that want to try to answer 10 questions in 2 minutes, which is honestly actually quite difficult. I sent out some review codes to some other content creators and influencers, and I said, hey, also make sure to try out that 2-minute timer if you're feeling brave enough. And I mean that it can be tough to answer 10 questions in 2 minutes. A lot
I'm
more
gonna try that now.
difficult
You know
than
that, right?
yeah, you need to. Yeah,
I
a
will.
lot
I
more,
will.
a lot more difficult than what you would think. But another really cool thing about the timer is when the time elapses, and it actually is about to, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, when the
50
timer
seconds on that
elapses,
one.
for most games, what happens, right? The game just fails you and says, like mission over, retry, right?
Right.
And back to school, the timer doesn't do that. The timer actually, once it elapses, the entire test is then graded. And if the player received or got enough questions correct, they still pass. Even though that the timer elapsed, they still pass.
That's awesome.
Because yes, yeah, which is just like a very small kind of thing, but it just tickles me pink. I love it. I love that feature because in real life, if you were doing a test and if you only got 60% of the test completed, but you got all the right answers, you would still get a D, right? And that's true in real life, and it's true here in back to school as well. So that's actually about to happen right now. So the timer elapsed, the bell sounded, and it said, unfortunately, you did not finish the test. You have failed. However, if the player would have gotten enough questions correct, it would have said something like, unfortunately, you ran out of time, but you got enough questions correct, so you still passed.
Yeah, and that's awesome. Like I said, this is very well thought out, and you can tell you've really put a lot into it, and I think that's great. Now, let me ask you that, not to fast forward past this, because this is awesome. But like, do you have plans or thoughts of, with the success of this, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 grade level questions? Is that something that could go up, or is that college level questions at some point? Is there going to be the college edition? Yeah, who knows,
College
right?
edition. Yeah, so I mean, there are definitely things that I wanted to put into back to school originally, but couldn't because of just flat out budget, right?
Right.
There's always going to be things that any developer wants to put into a game, and they're just not able to for whatever reason. And there is a few things I would like to add in, and that I kind of hopefully plan to add in the future through some form of maybe DLC or something. But a lot of that ultimately just kind of depends on the overall success of back to school. You know what I mean?
Right.
If it sells enough copies, then absolutely they'll will definitely be DLC that expands the scope of the game, adds in even
Nice.
more questions and so on and so forth. However, if it doesn't, then it's kind of one of those situations where you just have to look at, okay, well, what's the next thing that we can do, and there's already plans for that as well. So my big hope is that enough people support the game that I can continue supporting back to school and also create some other games that I have been thinking about that are in the pipeline for sure. Yeah.
Very cool, man. Well, I wish you all the success in the world, and I do like the look. It's like you said, the chalkboard look, but it looks really good. It's easy to understand. It's easy to figure out where you need to go, what you need to do, and
Yeah.
the chalkboard part of it with the racer line that looks great. It really does. And then the questions come across. They look like they're written in chalk. So I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, you did a really good job. Something to be quite proud of. So I
Yeah,
think
I
it's
appreciate
awesome.
that. Yeah.
No,
And
awesome.
you know, it's definitely a casual game. I also have to say that this game has not been rated, through, like the ESRB or anything like that.
Right.
So there is actually currently no ratings for this game. But at the same time, I will also say that, all of the content in this game is what, a child would learn in elementary school here in America. So,
There you go.
it's kind of safe for most players. I would say probably all players, and it's also, like you mentioned, the UI is very basic. It's
Hmm.
not super complex or
Right.
convoluted by like
Very
some
intuitive.
more advanced games are. But it's definitely a very casual, relaxing game just to sit down and play and to ultimately see if you're smart enough to pass elementary school. Yeah.
We're gonna
Um,
find out here in a little bit
we're
when I play
going to
later
find
on
out here in
tonight.
a little bit.
That's right.
And then one thing to also mention as
Mhm.
well, and I definitely want to mention this just for
Sure.
transparency. I don't want anyone buying this game, expecting anything that isn't provided. The Steam version of this game does support achievements. There are achievements in the Steam version of the game. For the
Cool.
Xbox version of this game, the way that it was published was through the Creators Program, and because of that, unfortunately, there currently are no achievements in the game.
Right.
So if you're buying this game because you want to unlock some easy achievements or anything like that, it's not going to unlock you any achievements.
Right.
We are still working at hopefully getting achievements on this game and getting the game transitioned into ID at Xbox so we can do that. Because look, I love achievements. I want there to be achievements in Back to School, but currently there's not for the
Right.
Xbox version. So I also wanted to mention that as well, just for full transparency
Well, that's good.
to
That's good
anyone that,
to
that
know.
that wants to purchase the game. And
So go ahead. I didn't
oh,
mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
yeah, I was also just gonna just kind of end it with saying that once again, the game will launch on Xbox and Steam on March 10th, and it costs $4.99 US
That's what I was
dollars
going to
to
ask.
purchase
What's
this
the
game.
cost?
Yeah,
Very good. Very good. That's
yeah.
awesome. Well, Trevor, dude, great job, man. Great job. Like I said, something to be proud of. Let me
Thank you. I
bring this
appreciate
out
it.
of it.
A lot of hard work went into that. Yeah,
Well, it shows, man. It's really good. It's really well done.
yeah.
I'm impressed, and hopefully you'll get your chance uh, to make your next game, and when that happens, we'll do a special show and have you back on to talk about those. How's that sound?
Well, I would appreciate it. Absolutely. Yeah, sounds
That's
good.
cool, and I'm hoping that at some point you get on Boom. We'll get you on and then talk about it as well because I mean it's
Yeah.
not everybody that makes a game that's cool, so that's very cool. I mean, this like I said, this is the first steps in hopefully maybe a bigger career for you. So that's awesome, dude. I'm proud of you, man. That's great. Very
Well, thank
cool.
you. I appreciate it. Yeah,
No,
and as far as promotion goes, yeah, I mean, I'm planning to being on a lot of shows here in the coming days. To
cool,
to promote the game, to get ready for the game's launch. Boom Show actually is going to be one of the shows that I'm going
nice,
to be on. I'm actually going to be on his show tomorrow. But
very
of course,
cool.
there's some other shows. I'm also in talks with some Twitch streamers to hopefully get them to stream it and play it as well. So yeah,
Sure.
everything. So I'm really, I'm pulling out the stops.
Well, good.
I'm trying to market this game the best I can. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, and I'm sure you've already thought of it, but I mean, have you reached out to like because I know there are quote unquote YouTubers and or Twitch streamers that are educational based or young development uh, for kids and children. Have you reached out to some shows like that to see if you can get those on there, or is that something you're going to work on?
Yeah, I mean, so that's actually really really interesting. I have reached out to a few of them. I'm still waiting to get some replies back. But one actually, like, and see, this is actually like this is going to kind of make people scratch their head a little bit. Like, what is this guy doing? This game really is not targeted towards children.
Right. Right. No,
It's
I
really
get it.
not.
I get it. Yep.
Yeah. It actually is very much targeted towards, young adults and just adults in general. But then
Hmm.
also, pretty much, I mean, you can make the argument that anyone past fifth grade, it's kind of actually really targeted to in a way,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
But for younger kids, as far as uh 7, 6, 8 year olds, probably not the best game for them. It's not going to hurt them. They're going to learn
Of
things, right?
course.
But
Yeah.
they may not be at that level of knowledge through just their regular education that
Yeah.
they would be able to play and enjoy this game, if that makes
Yeah.
any sense,
It
right?
does. It really does. No, you make sense. And I guess my thing was just, the more eyes on it, the better you could sell, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but
No,
yeah,
absolutely. But
but
I have actually reached out to certain influencers like that. Yes.
very cool, very cool. Well, like, good luck with all that. So, so gosh, let's kind of, I guess, kind of wrap this up a little bit. I do like to throw out a couple of questions here at the end, just to kind of,
Sure.
just to kind of, I guess, kind of bring it back to gaming, as it were. So, I guess, what has been your favorite game and or franchise ever? And it can be multiple. Almost everybody has come up with, I gotta give you two, okay, which that's fine. So what is the game? And if you say Rugrats, that's fine too. Could
No, it's not Rugrats. I
it
did
be
really
Titanfall?
enjoy. No, it's not Titanfall either.
I saw the posters. So states.
Yeah, yeah. It was free. The poster was free.
Nice.
No, so my favorite video game franchise of all time probably is the Elder Scrolls franchise. My
Yeah,
favorite individual game, I actually kind of, spoiler alert, at the very beginning of the show, I kind of already shared that, but it is Elder Scrolls Oblivion.
yeah.
I absolutely love that game. I love the Elder Scrolls series. I love what Bethesda game studios does over there. I'm just a huge, huge, huge fan. It is, yeah, it's for sure. Like, how could that not be my favorite game?
I'm with
I,
you. Very
I'm
good
a
choice.
I'm a very big RPG fan just in general, but
Yeah.
yeah. That would be like the one, like that's the desert island one. Like if I'm stuck on a desert island with, like, I guess, unlimited power, a TV, a console, and I can only have one game to play for the rest of my life, it's probably going to be Elder Scrolls Oblivion.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That totally makes
Yeah.
sense. Last question is going to be: what game are you looking forward to the most that's not out yet, but that has been announced? Not a fictional type game, but something is
Yeah.
coming, but not out yet.
Yeah.
What are you looking
Back
forward
to
to the
school
most?
too. No, I'm joking. No.
No, that could be your
uh,
answer.
yeah, no. Probably, I feel bad because I was actually just watching the show, one of your previous interviews
Hmm.
with the mag,
Yep.
and his game is actually the same game as mine, that being Hogwarts Legacy. I
Nice.
cannot wait for that game. Like, I am so 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 pumped for it. But back in like 2018, the game was leaked,
Yeah.
and I immediately fell in love with it. I saw the gameplay, like the leaked footage, fell in love. I want that game now. And I, started covering it through content, on the Constant Gamer channel, and
Yeah.
I cannot wait for that game. I am looking so forward to it. I think it's gonna launch in sometime in September, which I hope so. Man,
God, that'd be
I can't
awesome.
wait.
I'm with you.
But
Big Harry Potter fan here too.
oh yeah, man. Oh yeah. I've read all the books multiple times, a ridiculous number of times. Watched the
Yep.
movies a good lot. Of course, right there's
Gonna
Dobby.
say that's
Yeah.
a clue. Somebody should have figured that out, right?
Yeah, right
Dolby.
there's Dobby.
I love it.
But just to add a few more, just
Yeah.
because I mean, there's a lot of games I'm really excited for. Of course, Elder Scrolls 6.
Yeah. I would have guessed that.
I kind of didn't choose Elder Scrolls 6 because I mean, I already gave it some love with the favorite
Right.
franchise, but also
Right.
that game's out there, man. Like, it's going to be a good while. Later on this year, Starfield looks absolutely
Yes.
fantastic. I cannot
Yeah.
wait to play that. Um, then the new Mass Effect, the new Dragon Age, and the new Fable. Can't wait for those either.
Oh
I'm just
man,
a big RPG fan.
I'm
Oh,
right there with you on all those. All good choices and all acceptable answers. so
all
so
acceptable answers. Yeah,
exactly.
I appreciate it.
Dude, Trevor Burrows, I really appreciate it. ZemiGames, to those who want, we just know what Boom's gonna call you. It's Zemi. So yeah.
Yeah.
So Trevor, dude, thank you so much for being on the show today. I greatly appreciate it. I thank you for your time and coming on. And if you don't mind, let's tell everybody where they can find you, and the last little bit of where they can find your game.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are interested in following me personally, you can, of course, go check out the Constant Gamer YouTube channel. I haven't posted content on there for a while. I don't know when I'm going to get back to it. But in the meantime, there are quite a few, theory videos, news videos, and of course, Xbox tutorials. If you need help doing anything on your Xbox, you can always go check out the Constant Gamer YouTube channel.
Nice.
And then you can also follow me personally on Twitter at ZemiGames. If you're interested in learning more about back to school or the studio or what we're doing, staying, updated, or staying, to date on current updates for the game,
Hmm.
anything like that, you can go and visit goldenrodgames.com, or you can follow us at Goldenrod Games on Twitter.
Very cool, Trevor, Zemi. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. I really appreciate it. Thanks everybody else for watching here at Outbreak Gamers. You can reach us at outbreakpodcast.com. That is our website where it gives you links to all our social media. It makes it probably the easiest way to find us. Plus, everything is going to be down in the description below. Check that out. We'll have also the links that he just talked about down there to make it easier for you to get a hold of Trevor if you chose to do so. And again, thank you for being a part of the show. I really appreciate it. Thanks everybody for watching Outbreak Gamers.